I am the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, your only Lord and Savior. Everyone sitting now shall have to get up and bow to me right now. No, you don't have to, I'm sorry. I know that you were all just dumbfounded by this silly statement, as you should be. However, there are people in the world that will believe in statements like this, statement I just made, and statements like this. These group of individuals who believe in living beings as gods and upholds weird ideologies are known as cults. Cults are new religious movements that base their own beliefs upon already established religions. Cults are usually created due to frustration and stress related to an already established religion. For example, many cults like Jehovah's Witness and Christian Science parted from Christianity because they interpreted the Bible very differently from many established churches. Cults tend to worship beings or ideas that might sound absurd to the public. Many cults are also very established. Many cults are also very established to the point where they are actually recognized as actual religions. For example, many celebrities like Tom Cruise and Will Smith believe in a cult called the Scientology, and more than half the population of the state of Utah believes in a cult called the Mormon. Now, cults are notorious for their social controversies and social problems. For example, every member of the famous cult of Jim Jones have committed suicide in order to simply go to heaven. This was the biggest mass suicide reported in the history, and many are now claiming in order to prevent such horrible incidents from taking place in the future, the government must intervene in such controversial cults. Now, there are a few objections to this idea. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, was devised to protect the rights of ordinary American citizens. The First Amendment states that the freedom of speech and rights to practice religion must be protected. Many people who advocate cults claim that it would be against the Constitution for the government to stop cults from promoting and practicing their beliefs. At one point, Luther and the Christianity was regarded as cults. With Catholicism being the most dominant religion of Europe, many couldn't testify against or criticize the Vatican's corruption. However, the Vatican took advantage of people's illiteracy at the time, claiming that the Bible said that people needed to donate a large amount of money in order to get to heaven. However, Luther, a German priest who pointed out the Vatican's immorality, created a religious revolution called the Protestant movement, which revealed the Vatican's corruption and helped people understand Bible much easier. If King Ferdinand, the king at the time, had not kept a neutral opinion on religions and had instead oppressed the Protestant movement by labeling it as a cult, the Protestant movement that we know today wouldn't exist, and the poor would still be scanned by the Vatican. Much like Luther, there are many religions in this world that are perceived as cults that are actually genuinely interested in enlightening people. So the government should not be so quick to judge the harmfulness of the cults and intervene. Many rebut this by explaining the difference between rights and duties. They explain how cults have the rights to practice their beliefs. They also have the duty to respect the law. Cults mistake themselves as these peaceful, enlightening groups when this is clearly not the case, not always the case. Relatively small-scale religions like the Jungsan and the Japanese Chan Buddhism worship odd values, but they are not considered cults because they don't go out of their ways to practice and to preach their religion. Cults disrespect the laws and their entirety and social peace by forcing people their beliefs and often scamming them or committing acts of terrors in public places. For instance, the member of the Jinri clan of Japan committed an act of terror on the subway, killing 13 people just to spread their faith. When speaking of government intervention, people usually refer to intervention for radical and possibly dangerous cults like the Jinri clan, not the peaceful, small-scale religion that promotes love. In order to prevent such atrocities from taking place, many claim the need for government intervention for more controversial cults. Now, I'm so sorry. I grew up in a town with many cults. More than half of the churches around my town belong to cults like the Shincheonji and the Unification Church. What I witnessed growing up in such environment was cults taking advantage of people's vulnerability. I once saw the mother of one of my friends donate more than $10,000 to a church and tell other people to do so in order to be saved during the rapture period. If government had intervened and punished the church or prevented such case from happening in the first place by investigating the cults, my friend's mother wouldn't have fallen for the scam and there wouldn't have been other victims of it. With such cults spreading around our nation like a plague, the government should feel very alarmed. We need its intervention because we need government organizations dedicated to controlling cults and establishing a strike system. There are more than 500 known cults alone in Jinju, my hometown, which is relatively small, and more than 10,000 victims have lost their family members to cults, according to the study conducted by the CCK, the Christian Council of Korea. If these victims were to speak out against the horrid actions of a specific cult and government intervention occurred, it could investigate and decide whether or not the specific cult had the rights to follow their opinions and exist. A similar protocol was conducted in France, which was once near the Mecca of cults, and it has worked amazingly well since. I believe that when cults lose compassion and devote their energy into spreading social confusion and scamming people, they become more like legal interest groups rather than religious ones. And that's when intervention becomes necessary. Thank you.